get to the farm and ride 2 horses. I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of the backstory of my sort of riding career so far. Hello, it is Tuesday evening, and I'm just finishing packing up because I am leaving tomorrow morning to head to South Carolina to ride for a couple of days. So right now I am leasing a horse that I have been showing in the adult amateurs while I am looking for a horse to buy. And this week when I go to South Carolina, I'm going to be trying a horse that is for sale. So that is exciting. This is actually a very quick trip to South Carolina because when I planned this trip, it was just going to be like a couple of days to ride in between horse shows. So we went to horse show like a week and a half ago, and then we have another one not next week but the week after. So I was just going to go get a few days of riding in, and then actually from South Carolina I'm going to New York for the weekend to visit my sister. But then it turned out that this horse that I found, or that we found to try, this was like the only couple of days that we could work it out where the horse could get to the farm in South Carolina and my trainer was going to be there and I was going to be there. So now that was kind of added in. The only slight hiccup that could happen is that there's basically a hurricane happening in South Carolina right now. Where I'm going in the state is not like anywhere near the coast, so it's not going to be like crazy, but it's basically supposed to rain the entire time I'm there. So kind of going to have to play this by ear and see how it goes. Fingers crossed I can at least get on this horse and try it like once or twice and get a little bit of riding in. But it might get totally rained out, or at least I'm prepared to basically be soaking wet for the next couple of days. But that is where I am headed tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll leave early Wednesday morning. We'll get to South Carolina by the afternoon. Hopefully we'll be able to ride if it's not too crazy raining, and then would hopefully again be able to ride Thursday and Friday before I head to New York on Friday evening. I will check in tomorrow when I am on my way, probably when I'm like on my way from the airport to South Carolina, so actually fly into Charlotte, North Carolina, and then drive to the farm. So either, if I can, check in with you guys then and kind of give you a little bit of the backstory of like my riding history, what I'm doing now in terms of like leasing a horse, why I'm riding in South Carolina, why I'm looking for a horse to buy right now, etc. But I will talk to you guys tomorrow and give you the full download on my riding life. Good morning. It's a little after 6:30. I just parked at the airport and ready to head to South Carolina, hoping that it's not going to be too crazy with the rain and everything, but it doesn't look promising. So just trying to mentally prepare for this. All right, made it to Charlotte. I'm in my rental car. I just stopped to get some water out for the drive to the barn in South Carolina. Have a little bit over an hour of a drive. Right now, it's looking like the rain is going to hold off for a few more hours, so I'm really hoping I can get to the farm and ride 2 horses before like 4 o'clock. It's about almost 1 o'clock now, because it looks like it's going to start to rain after that. But I'm going to be trying this horse that's for sale first, and then also the horse that I am leasing. Usually he stays at a barn just down the street from the place where the trainer that I usually ride with. It's kind of a long story. So this horse that I'm leasing right now, I'm just riding with that trainer because he's right nearby and they know the horse better and everything. And then the trainer that I normally ride with, or that I will ride with eventually, they've been looking for a horse for me to buy. And then once I buy a horse, I will go back with them and be riding with them. So just for this week, because of the rain and stuff, and because I'm trying this horse, the horse that I'm leasing that would normally be at the barn down the road is going to just stay at this other farm for the week, or just for a couple of days, mostly because their ring will be able to handle the rain. So even if it rains a lot, it'll still be rideable. And at the other barn, it's going to get pretty flooded pretty quickly. So this way I'll still be able to ride the horse that I'm leasing, and I won't have to like go back and forth between the 2 barns. So I'm going to head over there, try to get there ASAP, and get on and ride these 2 horses before the storm hits. Hello guys, it is now Thursday afternoon. This has been kind of a rough trip in terms of getting actual video because of the literal hurricane that has been moving through ever since I got here. So here's kind of an update on what's happened the last couple of days. So I got here yesterday afternoon, I got to the barn, it was already about 2 o'clock by the time I got to the barn. Luckily it hadn't started raining yet, but it was getting really windy. You could sort of feel that the weather was about to blow in, so I was trying to get 2 horses ridden before it started to rain or just got worse. And first I did try the horse that was on trial for me this week. So this was a 6-year-old mare that had been shipped from Virginia to the farm here in South Carolina for a few days so that my trainer could ride her, and then I was coming in so that I could try her. And we kind of knew going into it that she might be a little bit too green and inexperienced for what I'm looking for right now, but she's super cute and it sounded like it was still worth a shot. So we gave it a try. After I rode her, I did then also hack the horse that I am leasing, who, like I mentioned, had just been shipped over to this barn for this few days that I'm here. So just did a quick hack on him because he also hasn't been ridden for a few days, or he hasn't been ridden that much since the last show we went to about 2 weeks ago. So just wanted to kind of get him out, stretch his legs. And then this morning, I went back to the barn to have a lesson on that horse that I am leasing, but it was raining quite a bit this morning. It wasn't so bad that we couldn't ride in it, but it didn't really make for a good video situation. But I will be going back tomorrow morning before I head to the airport to have another lesson, and it's supposed to be pretty nice tomorrow, or at least better weather than today. So I should be able to get some video of that tomorrow. Since I didn't get much video yet, I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of the backstory of my sort of riding career so far and kind of how I got to where I am now and why I'm looking for a horse at this moment, what the next few months or kind of the end of this show season will look like, and sort of what my goals are for the future. So to go way back to the beginning, I started riding when I was about 6.5 years old, and I just was immediately hooked. I was pretty horse obsessed as a kid. I got my first pony when I was about 7. And all I wanted to do was ride. So all of my early years of riding, from the time I started until I was about 15 or 16, was in Minnesota, where I grew up, where I still live. I was riding and competing mostly in Minnesota and Iowa. We would occasionally go maybe to Chicago for shows, or sometimes to the Kentucky Horse Park shows. But mostly we're doing some of the local shows in Minnesota. They were still A-rated shows. For a while I was showing 3 horses or 2 horses and a large pony that I had, again, just kind of like in Minnesota and the surrounding areas. And by the time I got to when I was like maybe 15 or so, I really wanted to see if I could kind of take my riding to the next level, but I didn't really know how to go about that. This was the time, let's see, when I was 15 would have been like 2003 or so. But I just remember like I would get kind of the horse magazines and see like the pictures of the kids that were winning at the really big shows or at indoors, and I always just kind of wondered like, how did they get there? Like, what was different about what they were doing compared to what I was doing, and like, could I do that too? And I had some really great trainers in Minnesota, but I think there comes a point where like it's not the same as kind of like the East Coast, or even maybe even the West Coast, in terms of horse shows and trainers and just all of the resources that you can get. And I knew that if I really wanted to take it to the next level, or see if I could compete some of those bigger shows, maybe go to indoors one day, I was going to have to find someone to train with outside of my immediate area. So long story kind of short, when I was about 15, I finally convinced my parents that they would let me kind of do like a homeschooling program so that I could travel and ride and work with a trainer on the East Coast for my last 3 years as a junior rider. So for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I was riding with some trainers out in Virginia. I started with one person out there when I was about 16, started doing the junior hunters, started kind of learning the ropes of the A circuit and really what it took to be a rider at that level. Ended up riding with another trainer in Virginia for like my last 2 or 1.5 to 2 junior years. Had some successes at bigger shows over the years. Even when I was showing still in Minnesota, like my pony won the over fences at pony finals as a large green pony and was reserve champion overall. Once I started training with somebody in Virginia, I got to go to indoors a few times, got some ribbons here and there. My last junior year, the horse that I was riding that year won the Legacy Cup, or was like the high score junior award winner for the Legacy Cup. I'm not even sure if the Legacy Cup is a thing anymore, but That's kind of when it was just starting. That was really fun. I felt like kind of right at the end of my junior career was when I like really had figured out what it took to ride at that level and was like, okay, I can do this, understand what it means to compete at this level. And with the right trainers and horses, like I have the ability to do this at the top level. But of course, at that point then I was 18, I'd aged out of the juniors. And really for me going into that, I kind of knew that that was going to be a point where I was going to take a bit of a break because I had, for those last 3 years of high school, I had just been traveling so much and doing so much riding. I was ready for a little bit of a break and to see how I felt if I wasn't doing it and like what it felt like to not have that in my life. And I always knew that I would get back to it eventually. I went to school. I actually took a year off in the middle of college to train a young horse. That's a whole other story. Maybe we'll get into that someday. So that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, it'll be good to take a break for a little bit. I don't want this to be my entire life or my entire career, but at some point I'll find a way to fit it back into my life. So like 10 years later, I had been working as a personal trainer. I had been starting to deal with some of my chronic fatigue and like health issues for many years. And that was one thing that really kept me from getting back into riding sooner. I missed it and I really wanted to do it, but I knew how much time and energy it was going to take and I wasn't totally sure that I could handle it. But eventually I got to the point where it just felt like there's never going to be a perfect time to do this. And maybe at the very least I can give it a try. I don't have to like fully commit to like buying a horse and like showing for the rest of my life, but maybe I can try it out for a little bit, see how it feels to have riding back in my life, see if I can kind of handle the traveling and showing, etc. So I got in touch with a trainer at that point, the last person that I had contact with in the horse world, and they are the people that I ride with now here in South Carolina. I got in touch with that trainer, just kind of told her the situation that like, is there a way that I can maybe try it out for a couple of months, lease a horse, just start riding again and sort of like see where that takes me. So at that point, I think it was end of 2016, I ended up leasing a horse for the winter circuit in Florida that year. And that was kind of how I got myself back into riding. So for those 3 months, I was going back and forth to Florida. I was just riding this nice older horse that was like super easy. So I just showed him and the adults in Florida for a few months. And while we were there, of course, we came upon a horse that was for sale that I rode and just kind of like immediately fell in love with. So I kind of had a choice to make at that point of like, am I ready to sort of jump in with both feet and like buy a horse and really fully commit to doing this? But I really was enjoying the riding. I really liked this horse that we had found. So that was the beginning of 2017. I bought this horse and that was kind of it. Well, that actually wasn't totally it because that horse I ended up showing that horse for about a year, like the rest of that show season in 2017. And it was so much fun and we had a really good time. She was a little bit green. She had just been imported from Germany when I bought her and she hadn't really done the hunters yet, but she was so chill and she learned really fast. By the end of the year, I was doing the 3-3 amateurs and we were doing really well together. We went to Capital Challenge at the end of the year. We hadn't qualified for indoors that year because we had started doing the amateurs pretty late in the game, but went to Capital Challenge, and right after Capital Challenge, she got injured. And honestly, like from that point on, it was a series of injury, rehab, just kind of over and over again, as it goes sometimes with horses. But we could never quite get her to the point where she was fully sound enough to do the horse show thing and to really hold up to that. I got a little bit of riding and showing in over the next couple of years, like when she was sound or when she would come back, we would maybe be able to get like 1 or 2 shows in before something would come up again and we'd have to give her some more time off. And after a couple of years of that, of like a lot of her being on stall rest and me just kind of not riding and then having to rehab her again, we decided to just give her a full year off and see if that would help her recover better or heal more, and then kind of start over again. And at that point, like I still was really struggling quite a bit with my fatigue and my health issues. So it felt like an okay time for me to take a little bit of a step back and like focus on what I needed to do to feel better. It was definitely really disappointing because I felt like we were at first like on such a good path with this horse and it felt like she could really be like kind of my forever horse. So even after she had that full year off, when we brought her back again, because of some of her old injuries, those little things would crop up again when she got into a certain amount of work. And by that point then, I also had taken off quite a bit of time. I was sort of not in the groove anymore, and it felt like I was kind of starting over again. And I also really felt like I needed to get my confidence back, because previously, like one of the last times I had ridden, I had fallen off. I was riding my horse when she was doing some of her rehab, and she was understandably a little bit fresh because she had been on so much stall rest for so long. And I got bucked off and I landed really hard. It was probably one of the worst falls that I have had, just in terms of like how uncomfortable I was after that. And unfortunately, like I didn't really get a chance to ride much after that. So really, like my last experience of riding had been falling off, and then I had a whole bunch of time off to basically like think about that. Plus I was getting ready for my jaw surgery. I knew I wasn't really going to be able to be super like physically active right after that, or at least for a while. And then following my jaw surgery, I also broke my wrist, and so then I still had to take some more time off. So I was feeling a little bit fragile, I guess, if you will. Like I just was really scared of getting hurt. And so as much as I wanted to get back into riding, I also wanted to feel really safe and to know that I was going to be able to find a horse that I could ride for a while, that I could get really comfortable on, and just kind of get my skills back and get my confidence back. So it took a while when I decided to look for a horse to lease, and it wasn't until just before the beginning of this past year of 2024 that we happened to find a horse at this barn that's just down the road. The trainer there is a friend of my trainer's. Everybody like gets along really well, and so it was a really perfect situation because I could just ride this horse with this other trainer and kind of go to shows with him for the time being, while my trainer is keeping an eye out for something that I can move forward with, or that I could buy that would be more of a long-term situation. The horse that I am leasing is not for sale and is really only a 3-foot hunter, so he's perfect for what I need right now in terms of him just been doing the adults. He's been so good, and now that I've been riding him for like a little over 6 months, I feel really comfortable on him, but also feel like I'm pretty ready to move up. But that's really where I'm at now, and why we are trying this horse this week, just looking for something that will be, you know, a 3-3 amateur, and hopefully eventually I would like to do the 3-6 amateurs. It's been a little bit tough to find the right horse, or to find horses that are for sale that are appropriate for what I want, but we just keep trying. We know it's a process, and that, you know, at this point for me, like I don't want to compromise on something that is not the right fit for me. Like I really want to find a horse that is going to be like the horse. So for now, I'm still in a really good situation where I can continue leasing this horse. We'll see sort of how long that goes on, or whether I'm able to find a horse to buy before the end of the year, or, you know, just you just sort of never know when you might stumble across the right one. But in the meantime, we have a couple of shows coming up. So next week is a week off, and then the following week will be a show in Aiken, South Carolina. And then I think we have another week off, and then maybe 2 more weeks in Aiken. And because of the situation where I'm like looking for a horse to buy while I'm leasing this horse, I'm not planning like super far ahead, because if I were to find a horse to buy, then, you know, things would change. So right now we just have those 2 shows at the end of August and beginning of September coming up, and then we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, that's kind of a brief-ish history of my riding career and where I'm at now. So definitely will try to get some footage tomorrow. I think we're going to do a little bit of like handy practice, even though doing the adults we don't actually have handy courses, but it's good for my skills. It keeps the horse interested, so that'll be kind of fun. And I am actually going to go back to the barn later this afternoon, I think, and just kind of brush on this horse for a little bit and give him a little bit of attention since it is raining. Normally I would go back and like take him out for some grass, but it's very wet out and it's still kind of pouring rain. So we'll check back in tomorrow.